Let's get our audio checks in. See what we got here. Facebook is live. And YouTube is we're live on YouTube. So we are live for episode number 13 of Whitetails and Whiskey. Lucky 13.
Aren't you supposed to skip 13?
I don't know.
Isn't 13 like an unlucky number?
Don't know what to tell you.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It's going to be what it's going to be anyway. So welcome back to the episode. We got a couple of hot button topics tonight, but we can get into them in a little bit. First off, I wanted to give my dad a shout out for punching his second buck tag on a great buck that we call double wide. Real nice 5.5-year-old. We got his shed right here on the bar from last year. Real super solid buck, and actually the neighbor found the matching side to that, and he's going to get that over to us in the next few days. So that's cool that we can have both the sheds. And I got him taped up and kind of presentable. I mean, he just got shot last night.
Yeah.
But this is double wide, and call him double wide because we knew he was 20 plus inside. Put the tape to him. He went 22 1/4 on the inside spread. So, heck of a buck, widest buck we've had on the farm since we've owned it. Watched him for a couple years. 5-year-old. Gave Dad the tease during bow season, and he ended up getting just a little bit out of range for him. And Dad elected to let him go, and saw him one other time, I guess, and the third time was the charm last night. What do you say? 2 steps into the 3-step hole that he had to shoot him in.
Yeah, he was all amped up for sure.
Oh yeah. Said he shot him 102 yards, and he made it maybe 10 feet.
He didn't go far, apparently.
No, he was right.
Well, he
there.
doubled up.
Yeah, and then he doubled up about 20 minutes later. Doe came out and shot her about 105 yards away. So, bing, boom, and punched 2 tags, and now it's getting, a couple friends out there and stuff like that, and, getting after it. So, what's up?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Is Facebook working? My wife says Facebook isn't working.
We're on Facebook now. We good? I don't know. The audio checked out good. We're having some technical difficulties. Bear with us. It wouldn't be technical difficulties without episode 13. Just popped up. Okay. We had a little bit of a delay on the Facebook. I apologize for that, everybody.
I think Facebook's been delayed like every single time we've done this.
Facebook's been the thorn in our side, I guess. But yeah, so we were talking about double wide, 5.5-year-old from the farm. Had a couple years history with him. I honestly had never seen this deer on the hoof since he's been around. So it was really cool for Dad to get him. For those of you guys that missed it, we touched on it, but we'll summarize again real quick. 102 yards, went about 10 feet, and Dad ended up punching his second buck tag on him. First time he's tagged out, he's pretty sure, in his life on bucks with the 2 buck state or whatnot. So that's what we got is double wide, great buck, and we're gonna do a giveaway. Spoiler alert: we have some Whitetails and Whiskey hoodies on the way. Hopefully they'll be here.
Pretty sweet looking. Yeah,
they're pretty nice looking. They'll be here hopefully by next episode. So we're going to do a giveaway for one of the Whitetails and Whiskey's hoodies. We're going to do closest gross score on double wide. And we'll give you one measurement. We'll give you the inside spread is 22 1/4. And the rest of it, you got to figure it out for yourselves. So, and we're going to score him as a scoreable 9-point. His double brow is broke off, so we'll score him as a 9-pointer. And closest gross score, drop it in the comments, message it over to us, and we'll do final call entries next week on the podcast, and we'll give away a hoodie to some lucky viewer for the podcast. So that kind of wraps up the story with him. Dad doubles up, doubles down, tags both bucks,
tags out
on double wide.
And double wide. A lot of doubles.
A lot of doubles.
I'll have to do a double shooter.
Maybe a double shooter at some point. But yeah, like I said, got him all taped up so he could be presentable because he just got shot last night. So didn't have time to clean him up today.
Just a recap on the technical difficulties. Sounds like it's working on
Okay. So
your Facebook, but not on the Whitetails and Whiskey page.
Gotcha. Yeah, we just broadcasted on mine for now. The Whitetails and Whiskey one. I think maybe we'll start doing that in another week or two.
All right. So I think she was on the Whitetail. Either way,
gotcha.
We got it straightened out.
Gotcha. Yeah, so sorry for the difficulties, but wanted to start it off with the story of double wide. Dad's on cloud 9.
I don't think I've ever seen him that excited. And
yeah, no, absolutely.
3 years now.
Yeah,
3-4 years now.
Yeah, no. So it's definitely something that was really cool, and we got talking about it too. It took him 15 years to shoot a buck on the farm since we've owned it, and he comes out and smacks 2 good ones this year.
Yeah, he said that one took a little while to step out into his shooting lane, and he was getting a little excited in the stand.
So you're getting a little adrenaline dump. He watched him for too long. He was saying. Yeah.
No, not yet. He says, not yet.
No, in that true mature buck fashion, I forget what he said. 20 minutes or so. He watched him kind of off to the side in the brush, and then.
Well, he's watching some does, and I guess he caught him out of the
corner of his eye.
Corner of his eye.
Yep.
There he was.
Yeah. So no, I tried to get him on, but he's got stuff going on. He's not much for being in front of the camera. Shoot, it takes me forever to try to get him to take a picture with one of them. But no, it was definitely some good times. Nate was fortunate enough to let us hang him in the shed last night. He's over at the processor now. Sounds like we're going to donate the cape to Mike Perez at Perez Wildlife Artistry. Plug in the night again for Mike. Mike. So me and Dad went up, saw Mike tonight. Mike caped him quick, and then we got him back down for the show. So thanks for the quick turnaround.
Yeah, great buck.
But so I think before we dive into this squirrely hornet's nest that we're going to go into, I think we're going to do our whiskey of the night. And because it's one of my dad's favorites, and I'll be sure to give him probably a bottle of this as a congratulations. This is a 9-year-old knob. Dad really likes the 9-year-old knob, so I'll probably try to find another one of these. I think I found this at the Newark liquor store that day. I found this on that bargain buy next to Wegmans there.
K&M.
Yep. Yeah, that bargain buy. I saw it in there when I was picking up Captain Morgan or something for you. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but no, this 9-year-old knob just cracked it. So this is the first pour out of it, and this will go into the infinity bottle afterwards. So,
and then for anybody who's tuning in about the infinity bottle, it's a shot of every single whiskey that we've I guess partaked in since the show started, and it looks like probably episode 20 or to 25 it'll be filled, and it will be a giveaway to a lucky listener.
Yeah. So no, it's definitely something. I got that idea off a guy from Facebook and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting after the infinity bottle. I think it's kind of cool. We took a little thimbleful out of it. It's definitely unique. It's definitely got some cool stuff in it, and
a lot of different flavors.
And a lot of different flavors in it, and that's going to kind of change as it goes too. So, but 9-year-old knob tonight.
Here's the double wide and episode 13.
Congrats to Brian. That's a nice whiskey.
That's a good sipper.
Yep, and that comes in at 100 proof. And I do have a 15-year-old knob that maybe we'll break that out for episode 15. That's probably my most expensive bottle on the bar, is that a 15-year-old knob. But we'll do the 9 for lucky 13, and we'll probably come back and hit the 15 on episode 13. So, had to get a whiskey because, well, we poked the hornet's nest a little bit. It sounds like. What, Russ saying, get a whiskey in him before you get him on camera. That would be a good idea, Russ. That would
might loosen him up.
That would definitely loosen him up a little bit.
He was celebrating last night. He was all feeling loose. He was all good.
Yeah.
He was on cloud 9 last night.
Yeah, fist pumping, everything like that. No, that was
good to see.
That was awesome.
Good to see. Kelsey, what's up? Long time no see.
We could have Kelso. Well, Kelso's got to kill. She's got to get her first deer.
Yeah, we get Kels on here. I think she said she's planning on doing winter leagues with us again with the
with Archery
leagues,
Heritage over there. Yep. Tyler says, have you ever tried Eagle Rare? I have. I've had Eagle Rare before. That's from Buffalo Trace Distillery.
I've never had Eagle Rare.
No, but that's a good suggestion for the podcast. We're always open to suggestions and ideas for whiskeys to bring on. Usually our guests, we let them pick what whiskey we're going to drink that night. And then when it's just me and Nate, we just pick something that we haven't done out from the stash behind us and pick it up. But Eagle Rare's a good one, that's sure. So Bo Hunt's ripping and ready to go for this.
He says, let's go.
He's ready for this. So
I like the enthusiasm.
So we did a post, and this has kind of been from the post circulating about Indiana's Boone and Crockett entry since they've switched to a $1 state, and how it's basically tripled, 2.5, 3 times the amount of entries in the last same amount of years. And there's been a lot of response on this. So of course we got to poke the hornet's nest a little bit and get everybody all fired up.
Let's see what everybody's got to say.
So to be fair with this, the way we phrased it was, what would one change be that you would make to New York's deer season, and to make it better? Better's relative.
One you would like to see happen, here in the next few years to try and make it a better hunting experience for everybody.
Yeah. So Bo says will never happen in New York. That's possible. I mean, some of these things I could see changed or modified a little bit in some way, shape, or form. But to be fair and to give everybody that commented in a thank you and a voice, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 different suggestions for changes for New York's deer season. And we had a resounding winner and a couple close seconds for,
I guess majority of the people.
Yeah, majority. So
like the $1 rule.
Yeah, so I guess we'll give our opinion. And again, these are all just opinions.
I gotta say, Bo, I think you're right. I think it's kind of beating a dead horse in New York, in my opinion, with this whole thing. I think New York doesn't exactly put the time and effort into the quality of its wildlife that it potentially could. I think the state is more driven towards the city. I think that's where the state's main focus is. And yeah, I would have to agree with you on that, Bo, with your comment. But it is fun to talk about, and I guess for what people would like to see change, it's always fun to talk about, and I guess voice your opinion on hopes of what you think could be better.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, we can pick apart all these topics. I mean, obviously the $1 rule is the biggest thing, but nobody really gave a resounding why to it. Everybody just kind of gave a statement. Some guys wrote lengthy explanations and stuff like that, or gals that tuned in with it. But the one thing that I have written on the top that a lot of people might not know is the DEC is all controlled by the state legislation. So they don't have their own independent abilities to change these things. They have to get voted through and stuff like that with due process with the state. And that's what makes changing stuff so hard. And that's why getting like the youth age lowered and some of that stuff is, takes a long time and is such a big accomplishment for this state to do some of that stuff. That some of this other stuff, it takes a lot of time and has to have a lot of, reason for the backing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And bless you. And with New York's revenue system for wildlife management coming in from license sales as a majority, a $1 rule, I think would greatly decrease the amount of tax dollars and money coming into the state through sportsmen. Because why would you even buy your regular season tag or ability to hunt if you tag in bow season? You might have a guy that says, well, I'm not going to buy my regular season tag because I already shot my buck.
They would have to change it to a tag that is valid through all
multi-seasons
three
and have to
phases.
buy. Yeah.
Kind of like, you have your
Bow
antler,
muzzleloader.
your antlered
Mm-hmm.
or antlerless tag.
Yep. Yeah. So, it's the $1 thing. It's not one that I agree with, because it makes up such a small percentage of New York's buck harvest. So if you're looking at roughly 30% of New York hunters, I believe it is 30% of New York hunters harvest a buck. And out of that 30%, 1% of that 30%, so you're talking 3 out of 1,000 hunters approximately, harvest 2 bucks.
And these are all numbers that we're pulling off of the DEC
harvest report
and the NDA report.
Yep.
For 2021.
And this was the 22 report.
And the NDA's was 2022.
Yep. So, it's a very, very small percentage tagging both bucks, in the grand scheme of hunters across the state. So,
and then even if you do have those 1%ers
yep,
that tag both bucks and you try and average it out, let's say to $1 per person,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still, you're still less than 50% of the hunters actually
tag an animal.
Period.
Yeah.
And most of them guys are, probably the diehards out there that are, killing
mm-hmm.
2-3 does and a buck a year.
Yep.
And I think on average, most hunters in New York only are able to kill $1. I don't think, like you're saying with those numbers.
Yeah.
That was
3 out of
that was
1,000.
my opinion before we even looked at the numbers.
Yeah.
Is I think most people just kill a buck a year anyways.
Yep. Yeah. It takes a lot of time and dedication, to take more than 1 buck, or to take more than 1 deer. Period. Even there's a lot of stand time, opportunities, waiting for the right shots and the right conditions, especially, archery equipment and stuff like that too. Mm-hmm. It slants it the other way with it. But, that's kind of my take on it with the $1 thing. And I think, and this is, I guess you could say I'm biased, but it gives my father another hunting season where he has an opportunity to tag 2 bucks. Whereas he could have been done right there at the end of October, just like we would have been done, early on with it too. So, and we're talking in this whole scheme of things too, we're talking about people that are reporting their tags and doing it right. I mean, to throw the curveballs in there to people that don't report.
The DEC numbers are based off of, I believe, 47%
estimated, yep,
of people actually reporting their tags.
Yep.
So they're actually, DEC's claiming that 53% of the hunting population doesn't even report their tags.
Yep.
So the DEC is actually taking into consideration with their numbers, their total kills. And whether their estimated numbers there are accurate or not, I would say 50% is probably pretty close, I guess, in my opinion. Yeah. But, I mean, you look at the total number of New York hunters, we roughly have about, a little over 500,000 total deer hunters, registered deer hunters, big game hunters.
Mm-hmm.
The total number of bucks or deer total killed in 2021 was right around 220,000.
Yep.
And then the total number of male deer taken, bucks, was right around 110, 111.
Right.
And then female was a little lower than that.
Right.
But, sorry, people calling me. But, I mean, if you look at those numbers, I really don't, I mean, that's like total deer killed. I mean, that's still less than 50% of the actual registered deer hunters actually just taking a animal.
Yeah.
Doe or buck. Yeah. So and majority of the hunters in New York, like we were talking about, I don't think actually have the opportunity or put the time in to actually kill 2 bucks, kill a buck, let alone kill 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think the lucky few, that 30% that you're talking about,
yep,
actually just tag a buck.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, we're talking about all these numbers, and yes, the DEC has to put out an estimate. They have to have a baseline of data and if that number is estimated into their formula that they use at 47 estimated percent based on what they check at deer check stations, and not harvesters, but processors and stuff like that. And then
Hmm.
the DEC will literally go back through and be like, okay, Nate shot a deer, he reported it. Ben shot a deer, he didn't report it. And so they get that data, and that's where they accumulate that 47%
They
of
do.
their,
They take an average
yeah, they take their average
of how
of
many
what
deer
is
they check.
reported versus what's put in at the processors and stuff like that. So I agree that the numbers could be better and should be better. One of the ideas I had about the harvest reporting is it's a simple thing, and I know it's always a pain to get your tags, but before you get your tags for the following year, you have to have a documented reporting or even a checkbox that said, I didn't harvest a deer last year. It
Hmm.
would be a quick checkbox. Did you harvest a deer last year? Yes. Or no. Or what did you harvest? It could be one or two questions, three questions when you buy your license every year.
And I think they are trying to make the whole reporting thing a little easier. I mean, you can download the New York
Mm-hmm.
State app, and you can
Yep.
actually, instead of having to deal with the automated call and
Yep.
someone or the phone picks up the TV in the background or something, you're trying to report your tag,
Yeah.
and it just goes all screwy. I know I've had that, but they have made that better. I noticed this year when I reported.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually all punch key now. It's not voice.
Yep.
Um, and then with the app, they make it way easier because it actually pulls up your tag history, your harvest history,
Yep.
and you just go in there and you just plug the numbers in and submit it, and it'll report your tag right off of the app.
Yeah.
So they are taking strides to try and make it easier on the hunters to report tags.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and I think that it's something that as apps and that advances with technology, I think that it's gonna be gonna be better going forward. I think a lot of it too is trying to work the bugs and the kinks out of the systems and stuff like that. Obviously, I remember the big thing was opening weekend for deer season. That's why a lot of people didn't report, is because that phone system and that processor couldn't keep up with the influx of stuff
mhm.
like that too. So, you know, it's tough, And in the Finger Lakes, that's a good point that I see Parker brought up.
Very good point.
That in the Finger Lakes kind of region where we're at here in parts of the southern tier, we have quite a good deer population.
I mean, you talk. I mean, I was talking to my father-in-law, who's been an avid deer hunter his whole life, and he was talking about how the habitat has changed, and his just the past 30 years. Back when he was a kid growing up, he could go out and you'd have all the big goldenrod fields, and he
Hmm.
goes, it just seemed like there was so much more deer, and he was talking about how a lot of the big dairy farms coming in, and I mean, everyone's got to make money. Everyone's got to do their thing to do it. But ripping out hedgerows and trying to farm as every square inch they possibly can to squeeze every penny they can out of the land, I think definitely hurt a lot of areas and some deer population. But he did touch on what Parker was saying also, is that maybe it does have something to do with social media and people being more aware of actually what's being
Yeah.
killed in the area. But um, yeah, it's yeah, it's definitely improved by hunters, passing those 2.5-year-old deer and waiting for 3.5 or 4.5-year-old deer.
Hmm.
And I think New York as a whole has done a great job in the past 10 years looking at data. And my you know I've been hunting for 15 years now. um, I think New York hunters have just personally taken upon themselves that they want to better their experience in their own state
Yeah.
and where they hunt. So they're taking the step to actually do that, and I think it actually is showing.
Yeah.
I think there definitely is.
I definitely think it's a culture change, across the board. Um, because it's never, and it's a slippery two-way street, though. I see with the way the culture's changed with it. It's not, have you got your buck? That's what it used to be 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. That used to be what everybody said. Did you get your buck yet? Did you get your buck yet?
Yeah.
Now it's almost on the flip side to the other extreme that, I also like the story, but I don't like where the comments go first. I don't like well, how old do you think he was? How big do you think he was? How much did he score? Do you have pictures? Do you have history? Da 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 da.
Hmm.
I would rather say, tell me about the hunt. Let's hear about the story. Let's hear how how the hunt went and the story went with it. The other stuff is great and that adds to parts of the story, but I think we just need to get back to the roots of, being working together as hunters instead of splitting up. And I think uh, Billy commented in with that thing about, all these divided opinions and pushing and shoving back and forth. You still need to come back as hunters, and even if we don't agree or sit eye to eye on stuff.
We all have a common goal, and
Yep.
that is to be successful out on our hunts,
Hmm.
depending on what you're out there for, whether you're out there to put some meat in the freezer, whether you're out there to try and kill your first trophy or your 10th trophy, or whatever it is. I mean, we all have a common goal there, and that is to go out, what Ben was touching on, and going out and actually enjoying the wildlife and enjoying, the just our time out there in the woods and doing what we all love. And that's definitely a good point.
Yep. So, I mean, you can be on whatever side of the fence with it, but I'm not going to ever tell anybody what they shouldn't shoot, anything like that. My kind of take on everything is look at the data and the numbers that you can access, that you can do to the best of your ability, whether that's on your personal property or from, the harvest report data, and make your choices on that. And just because they give you 2 buck tags or give you 7, 10, whatever doe tags, depends on your area, it could be 4, could be 2, could be 1, could be nothing, doesn't mean you have to fill every tag you have.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. Or if you do want to fill those tags for that zone, very rarely do I take all the deer I take in a given year off of one property. I don't think I've ever done that. I take them off of a couple different properties or different areas of
Yeah.
properties, to keep the deer herd as balanced as I can. And that's where it comes into our kind of job as sportsmen, is to be a manager of the resource. The state
Mhm.
has to paint with a big brush stroke because they have to paint for the whole state. It's up to your job as a hunter and sportsman to make those decisions on your property, to the best of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
So
You go out, you own 100 acres, and you bring 6 to 10 guys out there every year, and 6 to 10 guys all kill 7 deer. I mean, you're
not gonna have very many deer.
You're only gonna have a few years of good hunting.
Yep.
Solar panel fields, yeah, that's another thing that's coming up. Taking some habitat out, flattening some ground to try and, or I guess, better the atmosphere and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious on how that'll influence stuff too. I mean, obviously, it's going to take away from some habitat acreage.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I know, at least here, I know where I hunt in HJ. I mean, the big farms have really just, they're still ripping out hedgerows and everything. It just seems there's like no end to it.
yeah, and I liked
It's gonna be
Tyler's comment that came in. Tyler Jensen, needing more young forest and not open hardwoods and fields, and more uneven aged management in our forests to make that habitat and stuff like that. Because you got to have food, and we talk about it, or I talk about it some on my YouTube videos and stuff like that, about how much food you have in a open field versus an old field habitat versus a mixed woods. It's night and day different, and that's what deer need to live on 365.
Mm-hmm.
Crop fields are great, but with the efficientness of farming nowadays, and like you say, taking every square inch of tillable dirt, there ain't much left on the dinner plate after November. I would say at the latest for harvest, for like corn.
Yeah.
Most of the corn's off now.
Yeah, most of the corn's off. I mean, you still got some fields that are up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, farming equipment has become so efficient.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you go back, I don't know, years ago when you had just the small farm stuff, back when the small farms couldn't sustain farming those thousands and thousands of acres that they do now, and that's what kept that habitat up and golden round fields, those little patchy forests, young forests and stuff like that. And I mean, just the equipment now when they don't leave a kernel. I
And
hunted a
sometimes,
dairy.
yeah.
There was a dairy farm I hunted for quite a long time, and I still am able to go out there every once in a while. But they go through and they chop their corn, and they got a claws chopper,
The Klaus.
Klaus,
Yeah.
the big green and tan machine. I tell you what, you walk through that cornfield after that thing goes through, you'd be hard pressed to find one kernel on the ground.
Yeah. No, the farming equipment has got so efficient that it's tough to leave anything on no meat left on the bone, for wildlife. And there's been a fair amount more cover cropping and stuff like that, but deer have to have that sustainable browse in this northern region we're in to sustain through the winter. You need that, young tree seedlings in old fields. You need a mixed hardwood stand with age to have those saplings and the shrubs and all that kind of stuff to get them through the winter,
Mm-hmm.
And more and more of that disappears as, we kind of take more and more, as one of my coworkers at work always says, we're the biggest parasite on planet Earth in a way.
Yeah, humans are for sure.
So
I got one topic that I like to kind of change from, I guess, the $1 rule to the tagging deer to the habitat talk we just had is one that I'm curious, and one that me personally would actually like to see is a shorter gun season.
Mm-hmm.
I would like bow season to extend all the way through Thanksgiving and have gun season start the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I think you would extend that rut activity that you're getting in that first week in November and second week in November.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would extend that a little better through another week. And me as a bow hunter, that's just kind of I would prefer to hunt with a bow over a gun any day.
Right.
But I do kind of maybe shorten it up to, just have that Saturday after Thanksgiving, just do it for a week. You have a rifle shotgun season for a week, and then we go right back to bow muzzleloader.
Mm-hmm.
And then you finish the year out with that, and you can, the late season, whatever. If they want to do that, I don't see any harm in that either. But after Christmas, but I don't know if anybody's got anything to chime in on that. I would like to see that personally.
Yeah. So I like that. And the one thing, and this is all about how do you enforce and how do you change and make all these decisions. Obviously, like we said, it has to go through legislation in New York. They're not their own governing body, for management decisions, which is such a disservice to the wildlife, because by the time you get something passed that could improve the quality of the herd or quality of the land or the resource of the land, it might be too late or not even a good idea anymore. So that's what makes it super difficult. But I I think the Thanksgiving tradition is a big thing with gun season that I do like. Maybe it's the weekend before Thanksgiving opens, and then maybe you run it that first full week through Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving weekend, week off. I do like those week offs because even with the holiday season, you notice an extreme difference in the deer just from that 7 days of no people in the woods. The holiday season was unbelievable, and then you start saying you stretch it. In the southern zone, I think we can still stretch it. Northern zone, they start getting more severe wintering conditions. It's tough, I think. But I would like to see more breakups, kind of week on, 10 days on, whatever, of the first gun season, or 2 weeks maybe. Week back into bow, first week of December, let's call it. And then muzzleloader picks up, and again, a lot more people having only one shot, which is what we would always, suggest and preach, for a quick ethical harvest. You're a lot more patient when it comes to having one shot in the chamber, and that's all you got.
Yeah.
Or with a bow, knowing you have just one shot to make it right with your angle your shot placement, all that stuff too. So, I would like to see a little bit shorter gun season. I do agree with that. Maybe it started the week before Thanksgiving, and then run it through Thanksgiving afternoon. To get that hit, to get
and then
that
would you roll
camaraderie.
Then would you roll right back into bow, or would you roll into muzzleloader bow right after that?
I think I would go bow for a week, 10 days, whatever, and then run our 10-day to 14-day muzzleloader.
Bow muzzleloader.
Yeah, our primitive season.
And then I know a lot of these guys a lot of people are commenting in about crossbows with the extended bow season. I'm all for crossbows. I mean, I guess the full bow season. I guess that's my opinion. I mean, they're an efficient kill.
Mm-hmm.
My preference is I'm fully capable of hunting with a compound bow.
Yep.
I love shooting my compound bow and I love hunting with it.
Yep.
I think if you want to hunt with a crossbow, I think you should be able to hunt with it all bow season. I think most ethical shots with a crossbow are under 40 yards anyways.
It's archery equipment.
It's archery equipment.
Yeah.
You're not, yeah. It's not a gun, so I mean, in my opinion, with the crossbow and compound bow hunters and all that, I think it should just be a wash all the way through.
I agree with that, but anybody using a crossbow during archery season should have to take the bow hunter safety course, because right now it's just a slip that says I took the 20-minute online class or whatever it is, and understand it. I think everybody should have to go into that archery course, whatever you want to call it at that point. They call it the bow hunter course or whatever. And again, this comes down to your obligation as a sportsman to know that it's still archery equipment. A lot of guys don't see that. They see a guy on TV or in a commercial shooting 100 yards or toting it that it shoots 100 yards.
Which it will, but so won't my compound bow.
Absolutely. It can, but it's not.
As long as your form, your anchor, and everything's there, you can shoot that bow at 100 yards.
At a target.
And that's what they advertise on TV with those crossbows. But bottom line is, when it comes to a live animal, I mean,
living, breathing,
walking, it has its own mind. I mean, 40 yards and under. Yeah. I mean, honestly, with my compound bow, I don't take shots over 30 on a live animal.
35 is my magic number.
If I'm in an open field and I feel comfortable, I would try and touch maybe 40, but that's the max.
Yeah. No. So, and I know that's going to stir the pot because there's a bunch of guys that are totally against crossbow in any way, shape, or form.
Which is fine. Everyone's got an opinion.
If it means more deer are harvested effectively and less deer go to waste, I'm all for it as an opportunity to get more hunters in the field. Again, these are all opinions, and everybody's opinion is valid. Bo comments in, says a crossbow is not archery equipment. It still flings an arrow with a string. It's where do you draw the magic line, And I mean, a lot of guys will say that a compound bow is cheating because I know some guys that are hardcore traditional guys.
And they'll sit there and tell you sights and compound bows are cheating. I mean, It's all on your level and what you do. But Jesse, who was on the episode a few weeks ago, he
jokingly says all the time our sights are cheating.
Yeah, he tells us using sights on our compound bow is cheating. He's just a finger instinctive guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all kind of relative.
Yep. So, and like I said, I think the bow course is a good compromise, or blending that bow course to make it, to tell hunters, especially some of these people that might not come from a hunting background, or see that on TV that they're shooting balloons at 100 yards with a crossbow. I think a lot of those people need to be brought back. That hey, show a deer on a camera react to a shot at 20 yards and say, what do you think a deer is going to do at 80 yards, 100 yards, whatever it might be. You owe it to the animal to make the best shot you can. And 100 yards, I would never take a shot at an animal at 100 yards, archery equipment. Doesn't matter what it is,
They would not allow high-powered scopes on the crossbows. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've shot a crossbow. I've only one I shot had a red dot on it. I guess.
Like a 2 power, I think
Yeah,
is usually what's
it's
on
like
them.
I don't know. It kind of reminded me. I don't know what was on it, but it reminded me of my shotgun
Yeah.
red dot. Parker had a pretty
Yeah.
good point
Read
there.
Parker's comment. I'm gonna go see what power is on my crossbow because I have one.
Yeah. Parker says, keep gun season starting when it does, the 7 days before gun muzzleloader. Then before muzzleloader, 7 days of crossbow. After guiding out west, the primitive weapon units produced bigger bulls and bucks. Then everyone gets their chance to use their weapon of choice during prime time. That's a good point. Um, that's definitely a good point to give, I guess, all areas of hunting a chance to harvest their animal with their weapon of choice for sure. I think you worded that very well, Parker.
Yeah, and obviously, I would almost say more mature bucks, I guess I would call it, get harvested during the archery season as a whole. I think too. I mean, obviously the big ones get shot no matter what the season, but I definitely think that archery only zones, where you're limited on your equipment that you're using or primitive equipment makes a big difference. So Bo says, please put that thing away. I can't see it. It hurts my eyes. I assume he's talking about the crossbow
The
sitting here.
crossbow.
Yep. So, and I think it's only like a 3 power, maybe. You know, it's a 2 or a 3. It's not much of a scope on this, but again, I still understand and respect. I've shot a deer with this. I'm not going to be afraid to admit it. Actually won this at an archery shoot down in Branchport. But I shot though it was a super cold day, and honestly, I was kind of worried about being able to pull my bow back because I think it was like 10 degrees that day and snowy, and I was worried about not being able to pull it with my all my layers on and not hit my sleeves. So I decided to take the crossbow and I harvested a nice doe in the late muzzleloader season with a crossbow. That's the only deer I've taken with a crossbow personally.
Yeah.
But that's
Brian.
yeah. Yeah, Tyler says his crossbow is just a straight pipe, I don't know.
I mean, I think every weapon in its own respect has its own pros and cons. My opinion of a crossbow, it's bulky. It's a pain in the ass to carry to the stand, and then some of them, the way they're designed, just to try and cock them in a stand is just a pain. I mean, there's their own. Everything has its own challenges for sure. I would definitely prefer to carry my compound bow through the walk in my stand than that crossbow. They're heavy, they're bulky. That's just my opinion on it. Brian chimed in. He says, no buck tags for 5 years, just smash doe. There'll be plenty of giants to tag then. I bet you there would be, Brian. I gotta say that is
And then he says Nate's really eyeballing that crossbow. You better watch out.
Yeah. I knew he was gonna chime on here and give me some shit.
Give you some flag.
I work with Brian.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy.
Yeah. And then Bo
good
says,
hunter too. He knows what he's doing for sure.
Bo says, can you put a high power scope on a crossbow? I think you can put whatever optic on a crossbow that you want. I don't think there's a limit for that. I know there's like
I don't hunt
weight
with
limit,
one, so I don't.
Yeah, I know this one's
looked into any regulations on them.
This one's legal because it's under the feet per second. The limb width is good. I knew it was a New York legal one they were giving away at the.
Yeah, I mean there already are regulations for them. What you can, like anything else, certain broadheads you can't use.
Yep, just like regular archery with stuff. But the infrared scope, I don't believe you can use an infrared scope for big game in New York State.
No, I think you can use an infrared scope for predator hunting.
Yeah, which is not big game. So, yeah, I would have to double check that, but I don't believe you can put an infrared scope on a crossbow. And why you would use that, because it would put you outside of hunting hours. Usually, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think infrared scope is, yeah, like Bo says, unless you're hunting coyotes during archery season. Yeah, because technically during archery season you can't carry a rifle to the woods to hunt coyotes,
Mm-hmm.
or it can't be a
The
center
seasons
fire. It can't be a center fire
the
rifle.
seasons overlap.
Yep. Yeah, there's a little bit of crossover there with stuff. But yeah, like I said, with the crossbow thing, it's if you put them all into the bow hunter category to use them during season, everybody should have to take that archery education course or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to use it, even if you've taken it already. I think if you want to use the crossbow, you would have to retake it. You know what I mean? I think that's,
Yeah.
And then Bo says, you see what I'm saying, where the problem lies. Yeah, there's gonna, and again, we're talking under the understanding that people follow the laws that are in place. We can't take into account or weigh the guy that doesn't tag a buck and shoots $5. No matter what he's doing is illegal.
Yeah.
It's
not no matter how many buck tags you give out, no matter if you give any buck tags out, you're gonna have that guy that shoots the buck or shoots more than what he's supposed to, or uses his tag, the same tag 3-4 times on 3-4 different animals, just keeps rotating it out. You're gonna have that. Unfortunately, I know there's a comment way earlier in the show. Someone mentioned stricter
penalties.
Better policing of hunters and stricter penalties for the lawbreakers. Yeah. I mean, but no matter what, that just goes along with anything. You're gonna have the people that don't follow the rules and do what they want. I mean, I have no control over what other people do. I can only control what I do. And I try to do my very best to follow the rules and be an ethical hunter for sure.
Bo comments in, have you ever heard of anybody receiving a ticket for an illegal crossbow saying it doesn't meet the weight requirements or limb sizes? I haven't heard of anybody being cited for a crossbow.
No.
But again, that comes back to, you too as a hunter have the responsibility to know that what you're shooting is legal or not legal. Again, the guys that are going to push the border are going to push the border.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, that goes with anything, though. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, all we can do as individuals and hunters is just
be the best sportsman you can be.
You can be, and it sucks. People got to be that way and do the things they do, but there's nothing we can really do about it. I mean, obviously, I guess if you're in a situation and you blatantly see somebody doing something completely illegal, you can do something about it. But other than that, it's kind of up in the air.
Yep.
I think zoom and parallax settings affect a crossbow scope. If it zooms in or out, then it changes impact point.
I think he's right with that because I have no power dial like you would have on a rifle scope on my crossbow.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense with the geometry of it. I'm not a math teacher.
Well, I'm sure there's people out there hunting with lenses on their compound bows.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of verifiers, zoom you can actually put on a compound bow sight.
Yep. And I don't believe there's any regulation against that. I would have to check. I don't know. I don't run anything of zoom, so I've never had to look into it. So I don't know. I guess I've never looked into it because I've never ran one. I've never bit the bullet and spent that extra money on a scope or a little bit of zoom on my archery equipment.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit here.
Yeah. We skipped over a few comments.
We skipped over a few comments, and I don't want to leave the people. We already kind of left them hanging.
Yeah.
One was with gun rifle season, it brings a lot of people pushing / driving deer. What are your guys' thoughts on that style of hunting? You can go ahead and I'll take
If
second on
it's
this one.
legal, safe, and ethical,
Yeah, as long as you're doing it safe.
as long as you're doing it safe and ethically, and not shooting deer on a flat out sprint and stuff like that, because you can see there's a difference between running deer out of a block of woods and having them run like crazy, or just slight wind bumping them and doing a deer drive, and in some way, shape, or form. I think there's a lot of camaraderie in that. I think there's a lot of
That's how I started hunting, was deer drives.
yeah.
That's how my grandfather always did it. And that's kind of how that was my first hunt, was a deer drive.
Yeah, and I've been on my fair share of drives, or wind bumping.
I think it's more successful. I've seen more success with smaller drives with like 3, maybe 2 to 4 guys that do a little wind bumping.
Yeah,
I definitely feel like there's more success in that
mix, and
and then doing the whole Orange Army, stomping through the woods in a single file line, yelping.
And it's a lot of lead in the woods. Not necessarily getting slung, but that's a lot of lead for the safety of it.
Yeah.
If it's, like we said, if it's safe, legal, there's nothing against the law with it, or ethical.
A lot of deer have been killed that way.
A lot of deer, and a lot of big deer, a lot of small deer, a lot of deer in general have been killed on deer drives. It's effective. It's an effective hunting tool.
It is, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I do it every once in a while. I do some wind bumps. Did it over the weekend with a buddy of mine. Actually, he was having a rough season, and has only was able to tag one deer with his bow, and he likes to get. He's a meat guy. He likes to get 4 or 5 of them in his freezer every year, and he asked if I've had any spots where we could go see if we could jump something up. So I did. We went out, and he was successful. He got himself a couple. So, but that was just me and him doing some wind bumping. It was, yeah, it's effective. I've done it my whole life. Is it my preferred way to hunt for me? No, I would much rather sit in my stand and either hunt over food or hunt some terrain during the rut, or
but there's
something like that.
But there's nothing wrong with that,
as long as it's safe,
legal. You're not stomping across 6 properties.
You're not shooting towards roads, towards houses, over roads. As long as you're just smart about it and safe, I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Would I do it again? I think I would. Like you said, in the right situations, scenarios, more of like a soft bump, or like a mix of like a still hunt with, a wind bump, to an individual.
That's more or less what wind bumping is.
Yeah.
You got a guy set up in the direction that you think the deer are going to move. Then you have a guy kind of still hunting and pushing his scent through where he thinks the deer are embedded or hanging out or whatever, and trying to just push them, just bound them over to his buddy, more or less.
Yep. Yeah, and I enjoy actually doing a lot of.
There's a lot more camaraderie in that, and I know gun season is kind of altering more towards not so much of that camaraderie, where bow season is so in solitude. It's kind of gun season with the way things are now and how people are hunting, and the way land is divided up now, and some people don't want you hunting, and this goes back to them big deer drives that my father-in-law was talking about. You just can't do it anymore. So I mean, gun season's even kind of turning a little bit into that solitude, kind of like archery hunting.
Yep.
Yep.
I know Bo had a comment and I missed it.
No,
he had
it's not far down.
He had one about baiting. I saw a comment. I don't know if he deleted his comment or what, but I was going to dive in.
He says, let's talk. Yeah, I saw. He said, let's talk about
baiting in New York.
Baiting in New York. Yep.
Thoughts
about baiting in New York. I know people do it no matter what. I mean, that's going back to the, what we were talking about, either about people hunting legally and following the rules. Yep. I know there are people that do it. I don't know. I don't really think you need it. I guess, we got so many cornfields and there's already so much food, I guess, where I hunt here in the Finger Lakes. I don't really know if baiting would actually be
I'm looking to see if there's a feeding deer
like
page on this.
like a highly impact your success, I guess.
So with the baiting of deer,
I like the food plot thing.
yep.
When it comes to, let's say, a feeder that spins off every hour a certain amount of corn or something,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think it's that effective. I mean, I think the deer here, I think, are a little smarter than that. I think if you actually are going to do it, you're going to have to be just as smart, like when you're hanging a camera or going in and checking your cameras. And I think the deer will eventually just pick up on your pattern, and they'll just go to it at night. I don't really think it's like super effective.
I think
Yeah.
it can be effective and deadly. It all boils down to, like we say, access and design or whatever. But I think a feeder could be absolutely deadly and devastating in the right situation and scenario with it. Do I agree that you shouldn't be able to use mineral? I know some states you can put out mineral or supplemental feed in off season. The big issue that I see with the feeding is running into those issues in the wintertime with having that compaction and a lot of stuff like that. And in the system, and getting acidosis and the deer basically dying because they can't digest it because their stomachs have switched over with the biology in them. I see issues with that, or all of a sudden people just stop feeding and you've got
Arrest them all, Tyler.
yeah. Tyler says arrest them all.
I gotta go there.
But you can go into Tractor Supply, Walmart, whatever. You can buy deer crack and salt blocks and
Well,
all sorts of
there's
stuff.
nothing against in New York of purchasing it.
Yep, it's just using it for the harvest of wildlife.
Can't.
I don't agree with it. Don't I've never hunted over bait. Personally, never hunted in a state, I guess, where I had the opportunity to hunt over bait.
Some people might say a food plot's bait,
and that's a whole different conversation too. And Bo says a lot of big bucks shot in Ohio every year over bait. It happens, like I said, in the right spot, right situation, right scenario, with the right design with it. I think a feeder or a corn pile or whatever can be absolutely deadly. Because it's such a concentrated piece of a movement. Again, it's pricey. You're not just going to go out and dump one bag of corn and magically shoot a buck over it consistently. Well, I mean, and that's all relative. A big buck, but whatever. An older age class animal, doe or buck, you won't consistently shoot them over bait without it being in the right, layout and design. But
am I for it? I would say no. I don't really agree with it. I think it's a little less sportsman-like. Personally, I think you're more or less trapping the deer.
Yep.
It's almost like hitting a road stop in the when you're driving down the road.
Yeah.
You're just giving them the convenience of it, and I don't agree with it.
And I think a lot of that's because
but is it
culture.
Successful? Is it successful? Like Bo's saying, in Ohio, yeah, people do use it. That technique in different states. As Ohio, people use it in this state, and it's successful. But is it legal in New York? No. So until that changes, I gotta say I'm not really for the baiting deer.
No.
Me personally, but yes, people are successful with it.
It says corn holds the dough, and you know what's going to follow sooner or later. Yeah, I mean, it is a fair point.
This time of year, that's my favorite place to hunt, is a cut cornfield on a day like tomorrow afternoon, when that front kind of those high winds and this rain, and then overnight we're going to have like a 15 to 20 degree temperature drop, and then the winds are going to die down by right around noon, 1 o'clock, and then tomorrow afternoon is going to be, if you go sit a cut cornfield tomorrow afternoon,
or food source, clear cut, whatever.
I'm dying to go out and sit a couple of my spots tomorrow afternoon. Unfortunately, I can't, but that is definitely what I would like to do.
Yeah. And then for the corn that holds doe, they're going to be next to whatever available food source there is. If you're in a wide open hardwoods, let's just say in the southern tier, north, eastern New York, Catskills, or something like that. If you put a corn pile in the middle of the woods, yeah, that's the best game in town. That's the food source. That's where the does are going to hold up next to food.
But it needs to consistently be there.
Yeah,
and that's where you come in with the money aspect of it.
Yeah, it can get very expensive if you are in a
50-pound bag of corn
is probably $12.
3-4 dough polish that off pretty fast.
Yeah, and they don't know when to stop. If they're to that point where they're that hungry.
No, gorge themselves.
But you could see
labs.
You could see doe stage up and be just as effective over a clear cut or a mixed timber harvest, with the food available than a corn pile. It might not be as concentrated, and that's where your woodsmanship comes in to be able to find those, areas or pockets of, food or what the deer are utilizing during that time of the year to be successful throughout. Mm-hmm. It might not be a food plot, it might not be a corn pile. It's, it could be a little clear cut area. It could be a little, swampy bottom where there's a lot of good browse of, ash seedlings and dogwood and stuff like that.
I notice.
It all depends on where you hunt.
This time of year, the deer kind of alter between foods depending on temperature. Mm-hmm. You get a little warmer temperatures, I feel like they're still hitting the green fields. Mm-hmm. You get those temperature drops, they're looking for more like the grainy proteins, like the beans, the corn, the and beech nuts. Tyler chimes
red
in.
oaks if you got acorns dropping.
Acorns. So in the cooler temperatures, I mean, I feel like the deer on those grainier foods. But then when you get kind of like we're in now, like right now, it's fairly warm, in New York. And then tomorrow we're going to get that temperature drop. Tomorrow, I feel like you're going to have a pretty good chance of them being in the corn or standing beans.
On hard grain, I'd call it.
Hard grain.
Yep.
Or you got a nice oak flat or something like that. There, I think that's where you would want to be. Yeah,
that produces some, good red oak acorns, definitely. Or, on the edge of, and this comes back to, you got to kind of look at your, place you hunt. Maybe you don't have ag, but maybe you got a thermal pocket, and all this wind and stuff like that is hard on the deer to keep the furnace warm, so they might have to be on the edge of a thermal pocket where you got some topography breakup, or maybe you got a evergreen, component to it, a hemlock, side hill, or a planted spruce flat or something. You got to figure out what the deer are going to do, because they're going to shift seasonally for different reasons, food and habitat wise. You can't just hunt the same spot and expect the same result for, the entire deer season.
Right.
So, I think that's a good point. I think we beat the baiting bug up enough, a little bit with everything with it. It's definitely an effective, tool to harvest and kill deer. There's no doubt, but I think it's just not in our hunting heritage in New York to bait. I think that's part of it too. I think the states that have baited have just about always baited, in some way, shape, or form.
I could see it maybe helping the Adirondack guys.
But then you get back into that acidosis thing where their stomachs aren't made for it, and you can kill deer just as easily as you can feed them
ho-hos at Old Forge.
Oh, ho-hos at Old Forge. It's still not legal. It's still feeding deer.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I know. I've seen people, I've seen tourists feed them ho-hos and try to talk to people about it. But, yeah. I don't agree with it. But that's just me. Like I said, we try to do everything the best we can by the book, and we hope that, people listen to this and all the other sportsmen do, the best that they can do to follow the laws and, the regulations.
I get more satisfaction out of taking an animal on its terms. Going out there, doing your homework, learning, more about the species you're hunting, and applying information you pick up from podcasts, other hunters, just in the woods experience, stuff you see, things that deer do, different times a year, just through years of experience, and applying all of that into being successful, I get more satisfaction out of than just throwing some corn out there and having them walk up to it.
Right.
That's just me personally, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So, yeah, and if anybody feels different about the baiting thing, I mean, we can dive into it a little bit more, but that actually wasn't one of the changes brought up. Out of like the 18 suggested changes we had for deer season, baiting was not one of them.
What's the other ones we got here?
Antler point restriction.
Yeah, that was like number 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's in the top 4 or 5.
I don't agree with that. I think, New York, people pay enough for their license. And talking to my father-in-law earlier today, and he brought up a view that I guess I never really heard too many people talk about, is that it's unconstitutional to make people actually pay for a hunting license. If you own your land, or you have permission from somebody that owns the land to go out there and hunt for food for your family or anything like that, he goes, you shouldn't have to pay to legally do that. It should just be your right to go out there and do it. And but the reason we have regulations and all of that are because people abuse these things.
Right.
But when it comes to the antler restriction, I think, people pay almost $100 for a license in New York, for everything: fishing, hunting, small game, your waterfowl. I mean, it's close to $100, if not more.
For your sportsman license.
So that, and then just your basic life and how busy it is and how much the average guy actually gets to go out, and then seeing the numbers and everything, that the DEC is putting up from last season, and less than 50% of New York hunters are actually successful in taking a single animal. Mm-hmm. You get, most of these guys, you get an opportunity, I think you should be able to shoot whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm
not for antler restrictions.
No.
If you want a bigger buck and you want to do that, I mean, then you got to take it upon yourself to start passing those smaller ones, and eventually it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So paying your dues.
So quick little right on the DEC website right now, for the annual hunting license, is $22. Non-resident is $100, and then you have your stamps and permits. So, I mean, if you go through everything and get the sportsman's or super sportsman stuff like that, you're going to be into it $100. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Is that a lot? No. Is our non-resident tag fairly affordable? I agree with it. What's up?
No, I mean, you keep going. I'm just reading. Just pointing.
Laughing at comments. So I think, and this, I guess, is easy for me to say. I have a lifetime license that my dad bought for me when I was.
I also have a lifetime.
Yeah, so it's kind of not fair, I guess, for us to input. That license cost isn't that much because we don't pay it every year. Somebody already paid that for us. But I also saved up my pennies to buy my lifetime bow and my lifetime muzzleloader because, I never wanted to worry about going to the store to have to get my license or whatever. Now I just got to worry about the state shipping it on time and going and getting my doe tags. About it. They're usually pretty good, yep.
And then, Eliza and Tyler chimed in with the whole antler side, the points on a side. What happens? Like the buck I shot my bow this year. Ben thinks he's 4. I think he's 5. Yeah. He was big, heavy 6-point. If there was a law that says they have to have 4 points on a side, then yeah, he would live until he died of old age, because I don't think he had no signs of actually growing another tine ever.
No. Rocky?
Yeah.
No, I think Rocky was a true blue 6-point. I mean, maybe Bud. We talk about Bud the bar buck. He's a
got
6
little
point.
numbers, but
He's got little nubs, but if you're
brows.
at a 4 point aside, I couldn't have shot that 4.5-year-old 6 point.
Yeah, I don't agree with antler restrictions.
And like Eliza
I
said,
don't think it's the answer to better.
No. And Liza said, what happens if a tine is broken off? If you thought if you looked at him, saw he had a brow and a beam, you think, okay, maybe he's a 3 aside, but then you get him and he's brows and beams because he's broke up.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to one of the bucks that we still have around. We're elected to let him go because of how broke up, chipped up he is. Technically, I think he'd be probably illegal right now with a 3 on the side. I don't think he has it.
Yeah, no, neither of those deer would be, and they're both him, George, your other big 6,
Rocky, your 6,
my 6, and I got another big 6 point I shot with my bow 6 years ago. That's pushing 90 to 100 inches, and I'm pretty sure he was 3.5 back, and
they're just like people. They have a genetic disposition for what they're going to throw antler wise.
It is, yeah. So, I don't think antler restrictions are the I guess the saving grace for to change New York into a Indiana hunting experience. I don't think that's the case at all.
And I like I said, and a good kind of topic for kind of that transition with the 1 buck antler restriction, that kind of thing, is just take a step back for a second and think about it. Like we said earlier, it was always, did you get your buck? Did you get your buck? Now it's almost, what's the story? How old is he? All that stuff. I think that, if you go back, I remember when I shot that 8 point over there, my first buck, and people told me, oh, you're ruined. You'll never shoot a bigger one, stuff like that. So, I think hunting has come a long way since I shot my first buck, even in 08, in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
For what's around here now for age class and quality of deer. And I think a lot of people forget that because we live in the here and now, that we don't take a step back and look at historically,
the quality of deer. I mean, from what I, talking to my father-in-law and guys from that generation, they talk about the deer population's way down. It was way better years ago. Mm-hmm. But they will also all agree that the quality of bucks have improved.
Yep.
From then.
Yep. And I think it's a matter of we were at a point, and because and most people hunting now never dealt with it, but we had to restock deer in New York. We had times where it was party permits to shoot a freaking doe. You had to have 4, 5, 6, whatever guys on a permit for 1 doe tag. Mm-hmm. We were trying to grow a population then. Now we have to shift gears and look at how we manage that. And I think it's a moving target. It doesn't have a one size fit with it, going forward. But yeah, my dad says he thinks property taxes should be unconstitutional.
Amen, Brian.
Amen. Yeah. No, absolutely. So, and
Dallas got a good point.
Dallas has a good point. APR actually tends to get better yearling bucks killed
because you got that 5-year-old 6 point walks by. He's technically a legal deer, and then you got that 2.5-year-old 8 point. He walks by. He's a legal deer.
Yep.
I don't agree with it.
Yeah. So, I think antler point restriction is easy for people to grasp because it's black and white. And what I mean by that is it's a very clear cut 3 points. He's legal. He's illegal.
But that goes back to the deer drives.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have how many times have you been on a deer drive or a little wind bump and that deer goes bounding through and you got to sit there and count his points before you pull the trigger?
It's going to save a lot more deer.
Yeah.
But where I was going to actually, I lost my train of thought on that. But that's all right. No, you're good. It'll come back around. But no, with the APR, I think that you're going to kill a lot more of if you're looking for bigger bucks, let's just call it antler score wise, because call it what it is. Everybody's talking bigger bucks. They're talking antler score. They're not talking about that
They're not
100.
talking dress weight.
They're not talking. Yeah, they're not talking larger
age class. How many teeth he still has left in his head. They're not talking about any of that.
Yep. A majority, and I'll say it time and again, people are looking at bone rather than age, which is fine. That's completely up to the hunter and what you want to take. I'll never knock anybody for it. But if your goal is bigger bucks,
I don't think it's the answer.
I don't think antler restriction is going to be your answer to that. Bigger score-wise bucks. I don't think your antler point restriction's going to help you in that argument. I think increased education on people on explaining the benefits of passing deer if they elect to or choose to.
Educating them on how to age an animal by body size, not necessarily by its antlers.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And instead of putting a deer in a shooter category because he hits a certain, antler score, that's fine. But you also got to understand, like we said with the APR, I've seen 132-inch 2-year-old get shot. A deer that could have been possibly world class, and congratulations to the hunter that took him. But a 2.5-year-old deer at 120, you shot yourself in the foot for the biggest buck. Kind of management style with it. So it's a moving target. We say it always. It's a moving target with anything you're talking about. I don't know. I think more education is what the DEC needs to do. I think the let them go, watch them grow thing is kind of a good campaign, but they need to have like that nice printout that like NDA did with body characteristics of bucks in different age classes. To help hunters better understand in the field how you can look at bucks. And have a good working understanding for it. And it could be part of the hunter education course. It would be very simple to have a 10-minute conversation during your hunter safety course on aging bucks on the hoof and understanding that.
And it's really not hard. I know it took me a few years to figure it out, but it was basically because, I didn't have, the people there explaining this to me. I wasn't educated until I personally went out and tried to find this information for myself and wanted to better myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I got, in the hunter safety course, do they even bring this up?
I don't believe so. I haven't really gone.
How many? Not necessarily. Let's say.
I know my dad actually
conferences, but say more like field days, like you used to do with Old Tin Cup or still do. How many of them that now that I have a little guy, I would actually be interested in the future when he gets definitely a little older and can understand this stuff. To actually take him to those field days, and hopefully he picks up on some of this education that's out there. I mean, it'd be nice to see a little bit more of that for the youth coming up and just kind of get them educated.
Yep.
A little better.
Yep. Yeah. So actually, we got a lot of
and even for the adults that are interested in it.
A lot of comments coming in. Billy says Dallas over there sipping on the bush. Dallas said vodka. It's Whitetails and whiskey, Dallas.
My grandfather's vodka.
Yeah, it's all good. We won't bust you too hard on that. But yeah, Bo says 20 years PA antler restriction has definitely changed the age structure of bucks. I think it has, in combination with Pennsylvania, just because, like Nate said on that deer drive, you have to take that extra second to count them up. I think that saves a lot more deer, And I don't know. I don't hunt Pennsylvania regularly. Actually, I've never sat in the woods in Pennsylvania to hunt deer. I fished in Pennsylvania, but I've never hunted in Pennsylvania for deer. So, I believe it's a $1 state, but the number that I will tell you, pulled right from this, and this is one of the things I dotted out for the conversation tonight. They kill 3.9 bucks per square mile in Pennsylvania, which is the highest in the country.
Wow.
With antler point restrictions.
The terrain in PA is a little different.
Yeah.
most of New York until you get into southern New York.
Right. So, sorry, I'm trying to find it. Bucks harvested.
Tyler Jensen says body size and antler mass, question mark.
For aging deer. Liza had a comment about how to age deer, I believe. Yeah, we got comments coming in so fast. Sorry, guys. We're trying to catch them up.
Yeah, definitely the physical characteristics of the animal.
Yeah.
You can go online and look all this up.
DeerAssociation.com.
Ben actually has a pretty cool chart.
Oh,
do you have the body size chart that we could possibly hold up in front of the camera? Maybe someone can screenshot it or something.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. This is very basic, rudimentary.
I mean, yeah. I mean, just.
So I mean, how's that work, mate?
I gotta find the.
Just scroll it up.
There we go.
So basically, 1.5 old bucks. I mean, this one's 1.5 and 6.5. It's kind of the broad extremes. But with the 1.5, if you cover it up, the basic way that I try to tell people is it's a doe with antlers. You know, once you start getting into that 2.5-year-old buck, you're getting more of that rectangular body, but the face is really short and stubby.
Yeah, you're good.
You know, with everything like that.
Maybe hold it up a little higher.
Then 3-year-old, you get that racehorse look, heavy front end, tight waist, and this is where it gets tricky this time of the year when they rut down. You see a lot of that. You see a lot of that 3.5-year-old tight waist, early rut, but then, you know, you get into the mature bucks like this, it's a bourbon barrel for a body. And that neck is wider than the face. Those are your mature bucks.
The back's got a little more sway to it.
A little sway.
The neck comes down to more of like a, you know, it's just the throat comes down into the brisket.
Yeah. The neck's full all the way through, you know, into the brisket and the body. And it's a bourbon barrel. It's a different animal, you know, when you see them. And a lot of folks, like you were saying, Nate, hadn't been taught or exposed to this. I remember when a neighbor shot a 3.5-year-old, and he thought it was the biggest buck he'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he thought it was absolutely giant. Great buck, 100%. But that 2 to 3 to 4, 5-year-old jump, you could get deer that are, you know, that 200-pound class dressed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're a different animal. They built because they're not their full skeletal structural maturity until they're 4.5 to 5.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't get that big bourbon barrel body shape until you're to that older age class. And then, like I said, this late season, all bets are off. I mean, that 5.5-year-old double wide, the dad shot, he dressed out, what, 269, 270? Right there, or not, yeah,
270.
Well, no. 169 to 170. And again, he looked like a 3.5-year-old because of how, you know, wore down he was. But because of the history we had, we knew he was a little bit older. So you lose a little bit of that in the field aging as the rut goes on because of how much their body changes. But if you're talking pre-rut or early rut, you know, end of October into the second week of November, it's way different.
I think your wife's telling you she wants a new car.
Oh my gosh. Save it for after the conversation, darling.
All right,
We got a lot of comments to catch up on.
I think we're caught up.
What do we got left?
We got 3 that we haven't touched on. Bow hunt came in, or whatever this one is.
Jeez.
They just keep piling
Bo
on.
says, yeah, thank you everybody for the comments. We're at 62 comments.
This is the most activity we ever had on episodes.
Well, we had to stir the pot a little bit. Bo says, come on, New York implements antler restrictions. The primary goal of antler point restrictions would be to increase the adult buck age class to 2.5 years old or older in the populations. This would benefit more natural breeding ecology and an older buck age class structure and greater hunter satisfaction. it is a somewhat fair point biologically with what he's saying. I do agree with part of what he's saying with that. But what I also will say with that is a 1.5-year-old buck can just as easily breed a doe as a 4.5 or 5.5-year-old buck.
I've seen them buttons out there mounting before.
I've seen buttons playing around. I don't know the data to say the buttons
Might
are
have been
doing
his
it.
sister, unfortunately. But
You do get different breeding. I don't know what you want to call it. Different breeding kind of behaviors with more mature bucks in an area. And I think a lot of hunters are seeing more of that across the state as our age class gets better. And we are definitely getting a older age class across the scale in New York. It's not a triangle shape anymore. It's starting to almost kind of turn into a square, but that's not right shape. A pentagon, maybe.
yeah, but
Pentagon, 5-sided, maybe.
I know. But I think that, I mean, we are on here to talk about killing big bucks, but you also got to think about
the guy that gets out twice a year.
The guy that gets out twice a year that's just hoping to put some meat in his freezer. You got to think about some youth hunters.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think about some other aspects of what goes on in the whole hunting community in New York, and I think New York's great about that with the I guess that the variety
Mm-hmm.
that they allow you with the deer.
And I think in this area, and a majority of the people listening, I believe, are in this Finger Lakes region, we'll call it. We'll call it Buffalo to Syracuse. We'll kind of draw that imaginary line there. We'll call that Finger Lakes, just for argument purposes.
Yeah.
We are blessed with a very, very good deer herd. A good friend of mine who's a consultant in New York, John Teeter, working out east of Syracuse. It's a completely different game out there, and I've consulted out there. You're looking at a place where we might see, 4 doe a night, 5 doe a night. They might see 3 deer a season in some of those areas and counties, even with intense habitat management. There's just not as much deer density for some of those spots. So, is it possible for you to kill big deer in those areas? Absolutely. But your number of total deer is down, so your number of those big deer across the board are down.
I like Billy's comment.
Billy, just get out there and hunt. He said, actually, we missed this earlier on, he's down in Pennsylvania right now. I think they're getting ready to do some deer drives down in PA in the morning. Mm-hmm. So Billy's down there in Pennsylvania deer camp.
I hope you're having some fun, sipping some whiskey or something. And
we didn't get an invite.
I know.
We're kind of bummed.
Well, I wouldn't have had the time anyways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Where's that comment here? There it is. Bo here says, in PA, harvest rates of yearling males dropped from about 80% to less than 40%. Well, that once again goes back to those legal to non-legal hunters, the 50 percentile versus the other 50 percentile. More than half of yearling males were protected as intended. Yeah, but I mean, it goes back to what we were saying before with, you got 50% of the people actually following the law, and then you got 50% of the people that, not necessarily, I would say, breaking the law, but
and again,
aren't reporting their deer or anything, or not tagging their deer or anything like that. I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah. Obviously, those numbers are going to go down, and I guarantee it's the same thing.
And again, how many people, if you did shoot a buck, let's just say it was hypothetical 4 points aside, and I shot Bud, and he's 3 points aside, but I assumed, looking at his rack coming through, that he was 4 on a side, legal, whatever. And he comes up, and he's a 6-pointer like that. Do you think I'm going to turn the tag in, call the DEC on myself, and go through that whole ringer? Those deer aren't going to get reported that aren't to the antler restriction minimum. Nobody's going to report a deer and be like, yep, he only had 4 points. I'll report it. I think there's going to be a little bit of a gray area.
Billy actually just said it pretty good. I mean, the majority of people are casual hunters. The obsession of over antler size is not relative
It's majority.
to the majority of
I agree
our
with
hunting
that.
population.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with that, Billy. I think there's maybe a 10 percentile of us that really dial in on and
Being fed up with it.
are just like overly obsessed with these animals and want to learn everything that we can. I think majority of people, they just go to work, live their lives, and they try and get themselves out, and they go on a little family tradition of a Thanksgiving morning hunt in hopes that they're successful, which is great.
Yeah.
But I do believe that we are the minority in the
hunting community
as
as
the
a
community as a whole, as super obsessed deer hunters in New York.
Yep.
I don't think we have a popular vote on anything.
Yeah, I think because of Pennsylvania's hunter total and their hunters per square mile, I think that the APR almost skews success because of how much was taken at the 1.5-year stage. They have so many more hunters per square mile than we do in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I think that skews it a lot to why that is so successful.
They got a lot more timber up there.
And I think it works
down there.
I think it would work in Pennsylvania. Obviously, it has worked in Pennsylvania to improving the age structure. But there's a ton of education for Pennsylvania hunters versus New York hunters on aging deer. And there's a lot more of a QDM presence in that state, too, as well. So do I think it would have the same push in New York? We do have APRs in the eastern portion of the state. And it does show some success in those areas, but I wish there was a way to quantify how many hunters we maybe lost, the average hunter, because most of the people watching right now are not average hunters.
No.
I think an average hunter...
We grew up hunting. I know Tyler grew up hunting. Yep. I'm sure Billy did.
Bo, Dallas, all these, everybody chiming in and listening still.
But the average hunter, I mean, that is kind of, unfortunately, we live in New York, and you wanting to improve the deer quality, and I think we've already done that immensely over the past 10 years. But one of the great things about New York is anybody can go out there and experience it and still be successful, and everyone has a different standard of success.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going out there and shooting, the spike buck, or just harvesting a doe, or just harvesting anything, any kind of deer, whatever size, age it is, if you deem that as successful because you only get out a couple times a year or once a year with your dad on Thanksgiving morning, because he drags you away from the video games for a little while, or whatever the thing is, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Whatever your gauge of success is, that's part of, I think that's great about New York. And and there's other states that implement different rules that are trying to, I guess, cater to the more experienced and more avid hunters. And just, it's not a big priority in New York, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think as our group of hardcore hunters and wanting to harvest the larger animals, I think we took a huge stride in the past decade.
Yep.
Of just deer quality in New York, and that's.
Yeah.
I think we just continue. I think the best thing we can do is just continue that path. We can sit here and beat a dead horse all day long, but is New York, like we were saying in the beginning, is New York really going to listen to us?
And is New York really that bad?
No, it's not. Are you going to get your Iowa and Missouri monsters, the quantity of them here in New York? I don't believe so. I believe there are a percentile of deer that have the potential to grow that.
Oh, yeah.
But are you going to have the amount of them that those, Midwest states do? I don't believe so.
No.
I think your average 5, 6, 7-year-old deer in New York is going to be 130 inches. 120 to 130 inches.
And if you listen to, a lot of the guys at NDA, that's what Joe Hamilton's always said. An average buck is 100, 125-inch 8-pointer. The majority. Majority of mature bucks, that's
just what it is. I mean, and yes, there's always the freaks and everything, and that's what everyone dreams of getting. But that's just the reality of it. I'm a little more of a realist in my opinion on things.
Yeah, so I was
And,
looking for
And that 125-inch 8-point though in New York,
all day long.
I'm gonna take pride in killing them
All day long.
because I take pride in being a successful New York hunter.
Yep.
On big bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
You gotta hunt what you got.
Yep. So, I will say, and to be fair with this, I'll be fair with it. The top states with the highest percentage of yearling buck harvest in order.
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, 40%. Now, Wisconsin is in the top 5 for Boone and Crockett entries in the country, and they kill the most amount of yearling bucks in the country.
Isn't that where the 30-pointer came from, Wisconsin?
The 30-point buck? I don't know.
Isn't that Wisconsin?
Upper Midwest. Ohio, that everybody likes to talk about, 39% of their harvest is yearling bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And then New York does bring up third at 38%. But again, another big buck state, Illinois, 37%.
Yearling bucks.
And then Maine and New Hampshire bring up, at 37% as well. The states that harvest the lowest amount of yearling bucks, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Mississippi all come in at under 10%.
Yeah, but I think their populations are way down compared to ours.
Their hunter totals are way down. We have 580,000 hunters in New York.
That's a lot.
It's top 3 in the country, 4 for number of total
But in
hunters.
deer population, we're a top 10.
Absolutely.
In total deer population across the United States, we're a top 10 state.
Mm-hmm.
With like around 1.2 million, I believe.
Oh,
an estimated deer. No, in total deer population. In New York State, there's roughly 1.2 million deer. Is the estimated number.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And that puts us, out of all 50 states, a top 10 in deer population.
Yep. So, my apologies. New York State is 4th in deer hunter numbers. Texas is number 1. They're an anomaly. They're one of the biggest states with the highest population totals.
And this is something I kind of wanted to touch on also with the whole, you want to do, if you did want to, this is going back to the whole one buck tag, one buck
per hunter.
Yeah. Well, that's all well and good, but you also got to look at how many hunters are on your neighboring property. And majority of the hunters in your block that you hunt will say 50% of them get their buck. And the other 50% go the year without a buck. Okay. Well, now let's say you got 10 people hunting your block. Okay. You just went from 20 tags to 10. Well, I believe that those 10 guys are just going to, they're going to kill those deer, the same bucks. You're going to get the same amount of kill.
Yeah.
And it's just, you don't have that guy that has 2 tags that kills 2. You just have another guy slotting in, killing that buck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that an average is shown that New York consistently kills, on average, I think 30% of hunters kill a buck. And like 47%? 45-47% kill a deer, period.
Yeah, it's like 47% kill a deer, period.
Yeah, so
it's just under 50%.
Yeah, so that's
so over 50% of the state does not harvest an animal.
Yep. It's a very, very small percentage that shoot over one deer.
And majority of it is in the Finger Lakes.
And a majority of it is between that Buffalo to Syracuse block. And that's where a majority of the listeners are. It's not so. I've worked on stuff out near Albany and up in the foothills of the Adirondacks and Lower Catskills. It is a different world, for deer out there. Mm-hmm. But again, it comes down to the right planning, the right woodsmanship. You can be successful in those areas. You might not see the quantity, but you can match quality with the right hunting strategy and the right woodsmanship and the right manipulations on properties. But yeah, Billy's saying the cavalry's headed in across the border in the morning. No legal antler deer is safe. Loins. 3 points aside in PA. Hammer down on them, guys. Absolutely. Wish you guys the best of luck. Be safe and shoot straight. The pumpkins throwers are coming out tomorrow in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Tyler, shoot what makes you happy.
100%.
That goes back to Ben saying, if he jacks you up, jack him up.
Yeah, I love that saying.
I like that saying.
That's that buck I shot with the bow on my grandmother's a couple years ago.
Double wide jacked your dad up pretty good.
Oh yeah, he did.
Couldn't even dial his phone to call you.
Yeah. So yeah, literally said he was trying to call me for a couple minutes and couldn't get it dialed up. Tyler says, also believe youth should be allowed to shoot a buck of any size for their first buck. That's one I do agree with, but I don't know how you would enforce that. Yeah. You know, you might have, I don't know. That's tricky. But I agree with that 100%. A youth, first-time hunter, stuff like that should be able to harvest.
I like that comment, Bo.
The deer population total for the state is BS.
No, this one.
Oh. With a $1 minimum, you would actually see license sales go up because everybody would be getting their wife and girlfriend's son.
Bo, I think they already do that.
I think they already do that. And we all know somebody or have heard of somebody that does the tag game, I call it.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's gonna happen.
I'm for it if it's somebody that still gets their license and spends the money, but is incapable of actually physically going out and hunting themselves. I know you are allowed to transfer 2 DMPs, doe tags. Yep. You go out and get someone like that a deer. I don't
and again, where we are, we're definitely
capable,
blessed with being able to take does across multiple properties. You know, whether it's a permission piece, farm piece, ag piece, whatever.
And me personally, New York gives me 7 tags. I really only need 2 deer a year.
Yeah, maybe 3. Maybe 3 if I'm making a big batch of jerky, which actually I'm thinking about pulling a batch out for summer sausage again. Yeah. I got to order up some high temp cheese.
My hunting spot's so good, even the deer don't know where it is. Yeah.
Well, Charlie, you let me know when you want me to come back out, buddy. I'd love to come back out there and check out your piece again. And it's just, again, every piece is different. Every property is different. I know we've touched on a whole bunch of stuff, and we got a whole list of topics for podcasts.
More doe tags. I don't think that'll change anything.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of these that were voted.
Earn a buck. I don't like that either.
So earn a buck. Okay, we'll
it's an interesting.
We'll go into the earn a buck.
It's an interesting idea.
I gotta say my piece on the earn a buck. Earn a buck is a horrible idea. Absolute, and this I agree with this 110%. An earn a buck is the worst possible change in New York that you could possibly see. Because what will happen, and even if it's in a high population zone, like we'll call it the Finger Lakes region, Buffalo, Syracuse, block, you're going to have the guy. And 9 times out of 10, what's that lone antlerless deer that comes in? A button buck. Mm-hmm. And guess what you just did to earn your buck? Killed 2 bucks.
That's a good point. I didn't think of the button buck thing. I was thinking more of the I'll be out there and the first deer that I get a shot at will be the one I want to kill, and I won't have a tag for him because I haven't killed a doe yet.
So, and it goes back to that too with the earn a buck thing with opportunity to harvest. If you wanted to harvest, let's just say hornet. Hornet's a great example. I killed hornet on my 6th hunt of the year this year. I have to double check. 6th or 7th. Killed hornet. I didn't have, the way we manage our doe groups in bow season is 5 or more does, you take a deer out of it. I didn't have a doe group come within range that was 5 or more from a specific doe group on our property. So I couldn't have earned a buck to shoot my buck before it happened. So I don't like the earn a buck thing. No. It sounds good,
You'd be better off. You'd be better off going with the no buck thing for a couple of years than earn a buck.
Yeah, the earn a buck thing makes. There's so many. Like I said, 9 times out of 10. What was it? What was it? It was a whole 10% of the antlerless harvest, or 8%. It was 8% of the antlerless harvest was buck fawns in New York.
What a stupid concept. Yeah, Ty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think it's 8% of the antlerless harvest is button bucks in New York. And that's without an earn a buck. And now imagine if you wanted to shoot a buck, you got to shoot an antlerless deer. Well, how many people have been on that stand and watched that button buck walk around, loaf around, sit at the bottom of your tree?
Well, this all goes back to a little bit of what we were touching on before, is like actually educating the hunters.
Yep.
Actually, trying to educate the population of sportsmen out there.
Yep.
I think New York could do a lot better job of providing resources and clinics and
seminars,
field days and seminars for people to go to and actually
or incorporate it right into the hunter safety course.
And incorporate it right in the hunter safety course to try and better all these things. Earn a buck is crazy. I don't agree with that.
Like I said, you're gonna double. I would bet on that you would double your buck fawn harvest with an earn a buck. Because everybody would go out there in this Finger Lakes imaginary zone we've created tonight, and first antlerless deer that comes through, they're going to trigger it.
Well, yeah,
because they want to earn their buck.
Yeah, because they know you will, because you never know when he's going to give you an opportunity.
Yep.
Then there's the early doe season. I think they should have done with more of a later doe season. I think you'd have had more people apt to go out with a later doe season than early doe, because people don't want to blow up their bow spots.
Yeah, so the early doe season, I don't use it. The reason I don't use it is because I don't have the time necessary to shoot a doe and harvest it, process it that night. And in early season, you can't.
Which majority of people, I don't really think, majority of hunters don't know or have the capability or the equipment to process their own deer. They go to processors, and most processors aren't open for early.
Nope.
At least the couple around us that we use.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I
have everything to do it, but.
And I think the late doe season also gets tricky because, a couple things. We talk about a couple of the bucks that I've chased this year. Larry being one of them. His jaw's sitting right over there. That we're going to send his teeth out for. The neighbor harvested. He wouldn't have made it through. He had a bad infection. Mm-hmm. He would have probably shed early. He might have even shed during deer season. I've seen bucks shed during actual muzzleloader season, let alone this holiday hunt. I think a late doe season would be really hard, and a lot of bucks, especially run down bucks and injured bucks, would get killed during that.
Yeah,
I think if you were to do it, some states, I think Missouri's one of them I've heard of, Illinois is one of them, where they do a 3-day or a 4-day doe only season. For antlerless harvest between gun season and primitive season or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a better place to slot a doe firearm season in, is in mid-season in a week break. Slot a doe season in there or whatever if you need to take it in some of these areas. So, Tyler says, I'm just lazy. I take all my deer to a butcher. I like the deer shed, skin in time,
that's really the only camaraderie I get in hunting anymore.
Yeah, it's
is actually hanging out with my grandfather and my dad, and actually cutting up in any season. Maybe some friends will stop and have a couple beers or
help out,
chip in.
So this comment keeps coming in and out. Bo's comment. So I'm going to talk about it quick. Talk about educating hunters. There it goes, gone again.
Gone again. I don't know, Bo.
Bo, I don't know what's going on with your comment about Bass Pro, but I keep trying to read it. It flashes on the screen and then leaves again.
Sounds like he was bashing Bass Pro Seminar.
I don't know.
Not sure.
I don't know. Checked a couple other lines. Nothing coming in on the YouTube line tonight. Must be Derek's having a night off. Maybe he's back out in the field. I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
I think most people just eventually find it and it's just switch over to Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook's easy. It's quick. It gets out there to the most people. I mean, we've hit 79 comments. I mean, the views and stuff we'll be able to track those tomorrow with it. But a lot of people joining in the conversation tonight, which, you know, definitely. When was the last time I got up? I don't know. The video that I'm looking at on the Facebook thing shows me getting up. I haven't got up in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook's screwy. Okay, Tyler's comment comes in. Bo, I'm still waiting for your Bass Pro comment to be in our queue. I don't know what keeps happening to it.
Yeah.
There it is. Gosh, right on schedule. Talk about educating hunters. I was at my local Bass Pro this year, and the guy in front of me was buying a license. Sales clerk asked if he wanted to put in for a doe permit. He had no idea what a doe was, and the clerk had to explain. So, and I think that this is a huge disservice that New York did during the pandemic, was switching to online licensing ability. I think it's a good thing to give more people the opportunity, but it's a bad thing that you miss that hands-on Q&A education thing, because I've been to these hunter safety courses at the gun club and helped out and, you know, put the kids on the range for range time or first-time hunters and help them, you know, because they have these real questions.
Oh, yeah.
But in the online class, you might not get that kind of a question answered. I don't know. I haven't taken it. Maybe we should sign up, take the hunter safety course again, Nate, online, and then give our feedback for the
That'd be fun.
podcast.
I'd sit back, have a couple beers, and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it's tough to explain, you know, and it's something I think we take for granted because we come from hunting backgrounds. I mean, your grandfather, his family, you know, my father, stuff like that. It was passed down. But there's a lot of people that I've talked to, you know,
hunters,
people I met in college,
people that want to get into hunting, that grew up in a non-hunting family.
Yep, and then you're friends with them for sports or college
I
or whatever.
I work with a couple that are starting to get into it, and it is a little different for me because I grew up with it. It was just like second nature to me to know these things, I guess. But
no, I think we take it for granted in a lot of ways. Mike Kaplan says 100%. I'd be willing to take the online course again and give feedback.
Let's do it. Let's this week. And then we'll all chime in again next Wednesday at 7:30, and
let's give New York State more of our money.
Well,
because we don't give them enough.
Oh, we got to pay for it?
I think it's paid. Yeah, I think you got to pay for it online.
That's fine. I'll pay for it. What is it, $20?
Probably.
That's fine. I'll pay for it.
But yeah, no, I think it'd be interesting to see it. Because when I took mine in person.
What if I fail it?
I hope you don't fail it. There goes the podcast.
There it goes. Up, down, drain. What's a doe?
What's a doe? Tyler had a good comment on wounded deer topic. Do you think if you shoot a wounded buck that's not a good buck that you should be able to get on their tag? Yes and no.
But they're just
and I'll let Nate take over from that yes and no topic to what his thoughts are on a wounded deer.
You never know if the deer is going to survive. I mean, they're pretty resilient animals. And then I believe the DC is basically just going to tell you, just let Mother Nature take its course. Really, on it. I mean, you can risk it, and I mean, if you really do feel bad for that animal and really think it's, you know, not going to make it, you can put your tag on it. I know some people do. I mean, I I would, if it's not an animal that you're gonna want to put your tag on, I honestly would just let nature take its course.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, even if it was a human cause for the injury, it's just part of the game. Unfortunately, these things happen, and I mean, deer survive year to year with getting shot in one lung. I mean, and then you got deer that just get scabbed in the back, like Larry here, and they get like super infected and
wore down and about on deathbed.
and basically on a deathbed, and it's kind of amazing what they can survive. And then sometimes it's like, really, how come that deer can take that, but this deer, this happened to it, and he didn't even last a few months.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know, you never know when it
Yeah.
comes to a limping deer.
So I like the topic, and I'll be the first one to say that if for whatever reason I was tagged out, I was still looking for a doe, and a wounded buck came through, severely wounded. I'm not talking like, I think he's kind of limping. I know me and Nate joke about that a lot.
Well, that's my pass on Ben's farm. If he's limping, Nate, you can shoot him, so every deer's limping. All the big bucks are limping. Brian, I hope you're not listening.
Yeah, so and again, with that topic of it, that deer that looks, very, very injured, wounded, everything like that, I would still probably take that deer even if I didn't have a tag. And that's just me morally. That's just the way I am. I don't want to see an animal suffer.
What would you do with the carcass?
This is just me being a good Boy Scout, but I would probably call the DEC and tell them the situation. But it would have to be like that deer's like laying down, and I can basically walk up to it and shoot it laying down. You know what I mean?
Limping.
Yeah, no, it's not like
it's laying.
Yeah,
it's not limping.
Yeah, it won't get up, and it's not acting like a deer. But and I'm sure people will probably kill me for that topic, but
I don't know. I would.
So
I just let nature take its course.
But case in point, with the wounded deer, we had a deer that we call Bottom 9 that got shot by a neighbor last year.
Mm-hmm.
Leg got all swelled up, looked infected as shit.
Yep.
Carried that leg around. I got videos of him chasing doe on 3 legs.
Oh yeah, they still do their thing.
And I was bummed out when I had him come by me in bow season and I couldn't shoot him because he was just too far out. And I'm like, oh, that deer's gonna die. Guess what?
He didn't.
He didn't. He pushed through it. The will to survive for these deer is amazing. Like you said, one lung. I shot this guy on a full pass through, one lung, outlaw, and guess what? Those are his sheds from when I shot him. I killed him the next year. I had to slow him down to be able to get him.
You were shooting an elite.
I was shooting an elite.
But that's getting into a whole nother topic.
But some of the stuff is amazing. And then, like I said, Larry, he was on the way out. Like that, like you could smell him on how like rotten infected he was from a good 15, 20 yards away. It was not pleasant,
Would he have survived? We'll never know.
He didn't.
Well, someone shot him.
That rifle did him in.
Yeah, 270 or whatever it was.
But yeah, so
actually, have a good night. I think we're winding down here.
Yeah, I think we're actually on about the 2-hour mark.
Ben's wife's gonna strangle him.
What?
She said to keep it to like an hour and 15. You're way
we
past.
went over a little bit. Yikes. Sorry. So I hope we covered enough hot button topics tonight, as promised.
I think it was good.
So,
I expected a little more controversy. I think everyone was pretty united on most of the stuff.
Yeah, I think that was good. Bo, thanks for chiming in. Tyler, Mike, thanks, Billy, Dallas, and I know we're gonna miss people. Kels, Liza. Oh my gosh.
Hannah.
Had a lot of.
She said something.
86.
Hannah wanted a new like suburban SUV or something.
Yeah, SUV versus Suburban. Charlie commented in. We're just gonna scroll back up through and just shout everybody out. We said Dallas, Billy, Bo, Liza, and I think that's we can't scroll up any further. So sorry.
86 comments. 87. Another one just.
87 comments. Mike Campbell says, "Pump for the next one."
Thanks, Mike.
I'm glad everybody's liking the podcast. Again, if you missed it or want somebody to tune back into it, all these go up on
YouTube.
the Old Tin Cup YouTube page, and you can check them out at work. Put in your headphones or whatever at work if you can do that, and listen to it. Everything like that. Aaron Lehman commenting in right at the end. Good luck hunting. Yeah, good luck to everybody still out there with a tag. Absolutely, and we thank you guys. And again, quick shout out for the end of this. We are gonna do a Whitetails and Whiskey podcast hoodie giveaway, size of your choice, obviously, for closest gross score of double wide, the buck that my dad tagged out on last night. So shoot us over a message.
Get him a couple of angles,
Give him a little spin.
Give him a little spin.
And we'll give you the 22 1/4 inside spread measurement for your guess for next week's podcast. We'll have them scored up. We'll give a couple teasers. If you want to get your comments in, send them over to us. We'll enter in your comment into your thing like we did with Hornet. Shanna Joe, I ordered her hoodie, so she'll get her hoodie and everything. That's coming in with the batch of.
Did you get the
milkweed pod?
Milkweed pod.
Change purse? I still have. That's upstairs.
Just making sure that
I need the hoodie to make the package.
That was a hot topic.
Yep, I need the hoodie to make the package. So, we're gonna give away a hoodie for closest gross green score on double wide. But thank everyone for tuning into this. I think this is probably going to be our best podcast we've had with the topics and everything like that. I think it was a good conversation, great back and forth with everybody tonight. So, Tyler, you can send them in, text them in, message them in,
you could
drop them in the comments.
You could PM Ben. You can PM me.
You can drop it in
tune
right
into
now.
the podcast next week and just throw them in there while Ben's measuring them up. However, Ty,
we're not picky. I mean, I don't know. We're not really official.
I think Ty might even have my number. You just shoot me a number. It's no big deal. Or just chime. I guess the easiest way would be to chime in next week and just send over a number.
Yeah,
that you think he is.
Think on it. We'll show him at the beginning. We'll talk maybe a topic or two.
Or personal message me and Ben on Facebook, and we'll write your number down.
Yeah, we're not.
Your name.
We're not fancy or official.
No,
it's just the Whitetails and Whiskey podcast.
And then, if guesses do get doubled, like two people have the same guess, first person to guess that number gets that number.
Okay.
The second one will have to guess another size if they want to be in on it.
Yep. Okay.
Because you can't have two winners.
So definitely tune in next week to see if you win. Yeah. And drop in. You can plan on tuning back in to drop in your score. All right. One last look for green gross on double wide for a Whitetails and Whiskey podcast hoodie. Size of your choice. We'll take comments, questions, anything like that on them. 22 1/4 inside for your width measurement. I think that's all we got tonight. I think that's solid.
It's good. I think it's our longest one yet.
Probably is.
2 hours.
Probably is. Your mom probably thought it went 3.
Yeah. But she always tells me we talk way too long on this thing.
What are you going to do? We sit here, we drink some whiskey, we talk about deer, we have a million things to talk about and could keep going for hours still.
She goes, you guys just keep talking, she says.
But it is a Wednesday night. We have to work tomorrow. I hope you guys get out this weekend, or tomorrow would be the day I would be going.
Tomorrow afternoon, if you can get out the last 2 hours, I think it's going to be dynamite, especially if you could sit over a uncut bean field or cornfield.
Yeah, any kind of food source. I think tomorrow night's going to be fire. After the wind and weather today and stuff.
I would love to get out tomorrow and sit one of those cut cornfields.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you haven't, head over to the YouTube, subscribe, check out. Ooh,
We already got numbers coming in.
Bo, I thought you were going to bed. So Bo says 106. Ooh.
106 and 6/8. All right, Bo, we got your number. We'll write you down.
We got it. We'll write that in for Bo's guess. First guess coming in goes 106 and 6/8.
That's what he says.
106, 6/8 on him.
Okay, Bo. Thank you.
Gotcha. Good comment. Good time tonight. Good conversation, everybody. We appreciate it so much. Go over to the YouTube page, subscribe so you get the updates whenever we go live. We go on the Bullhorn app if you ever want to call in to be part of the conversation with us.
Or just tell us, about a hunt you had or a crazy experience or something. You're more than welcome to call in and tell us your story.
Yep. And like always, we'll be live on Facebook. We'll be switching over to the Whitetails and Whiskey podcast page for broadcasting sometime in the near future. But for now, it'll be on my personal page. So thank you everyone so much. We appreciate it. And until next time, Whitetails and Whiskey on Wednesday nights.
Good luck, guys.